Hello YouTube, this is Boston Best 0407, and this is going to be my first video in several months, probably at least 7 months, and I guess I have some explaining to do. I like to apologize right off the bat to my new subscribers for not uploading any new videos since whenever. I got caught up with a lot of different things that was going on in my personal life, and I wasn't able to really follow up on the video I had done. And then I got all confused with these new changes on Google with YouTube, and it was just very, very exhausting and frustrating. So I never really got around to finishing my video and doing my critique of Christianity as I had promised to do. But it's not just this channel that I neglected. I also neglected my other channel, which is about spirituality, and the blog that was related to that channel. So if you felt a little bit, took it a bit personally, I'm sure you probably didn't, any of you out there, no need to worry. You weren't the only ones who were being neglected. Now, going back to my last video, I had discussed my prior left-wing politics, and I wanted to use that video as a sort of a lead-in to a video that was going to be a critique of Christianity. And I was going to try to critique Christianity and essentially make the argument that all of the problems that we have in Western culture are ultimately a problem of Christianity. And the thing that has to be said right off the bat with this critique of Christianity that I'm going to do in this video is that the discussion of Christianity and its effects on Western culture are complicated. One, they're complicated because Christianity is the foundation of Western culture, basically. That's the first thing. The second thing is that when you look at Christianity or you try to critique Christianity, it becomes very complicated, because you always have some Christian who will say, well, that's not Christianity. If you try to critique Christianity and the way in which you're doing it is somewhat biased, if you grew up, for instance, in the type of Christian environment that I grew up in with my mother, that's a very different Christian environment than someone else. It's different than a Catholic or Lutheran or whatever. And so, looking at these different perspectives, there's always somebody. In the time that I've had to discuss it with different people, I found that, mainly my mother, because she's probably one of the only Christians I really know of, along with my father, who I've had the time to discuss it with. But anytime I've had situations where I've had to discuss Christianity with people of this sort, I found that they will say, well, that's not Christianity. There's always this perception among Christians about what's the true Christianity, what's the real Christianity. The fact of the matter is, it ultimately, it doesn't matter, because it's all Christianity. And ultimately, when we really look at it, when we really try to, from my perspective anyway, I would say that what has become very clear to me is that Christianity has its own metaphysical ideas, which are distinctly Christian to the religion, and then it has its hardened secularized forms, and it has a great deal of residual that's not Christian in any way, shape, or form, but is a product of Christianity. It's really a consequence of Christianity. One of the things that has to be understood about Christianity from the very beginning is that it is a subversive belief system. It is a belief system that goes against the world in which we all live. It isn't just that, like Nietzsche said, that it inverts Christianity. It inverts nature. Christianity inverts nature. Sorry about that. It isn't just that. It isn't just that Christianity inverts nature. It's that Christianity is against the world itself. And this means that Christianity cannot form very easily any sorts of political structure. The fact that it has is a miracle of a particular sort, because Christianity is subversive. Christianity as a belief system in its very essence is going against the status quo. It is always going against the status quo. Thus, any society founded upon Christian principles always going to be somewhat going in upon itself. And it's not because it's not because of anything unique to Christianity itself, but when it secularizes and hardens, or when the same idea becomes applied outside of Christianity, outside of the religious beliefs, outside of loyalty to the idea of worshiping Christ as Savior, or accepting Christ as Savior. Outside of that, when it hardens, when it secularizes, it does something different. It does something rather strange. And it means that there's something almost revolutionary about Christianity that's always just underneath it. And when it becomes something that's not Christian, it becomes something equivalent to Marxism. Marxism is an example of a secularized, hardened, completely rid of any religious element. But it's the morality, it's the metaphysics of it, it's the same idea. And of course, every one of these ideas, besides being essentially counter-propositional to how we are as human beings, because again, it inverts nature, it always implies that whatever it is wrong, that there's something, of course, wrong with the status quo. And much of the ideas of things like thinking for yourself and this sort of thing, it's funny how all of us who critique Christianity, especially people like me, people who come from the sorts of subcultures or whatever that I tend to be interested in, or that I tend to be involved with to one degree or another. It's funny how all of us, when we critique Christianity, when we look at Christianity, we can't help but falling back into the Christian view. There's always an extent to which people criticize Christianity, but they're almost mad that Christianity wasn't Christian enough. It's almost as if they're surprised that Christianity became a part of the world. And this comes from the idea that there's somehow something wrong with the Crusades. I've heard people who are anti-Christian criticize the Crusades. I see nothing wrong with the Crusades because there was a need for it at the time. And I see nothing wrong with the fact that Christianity has to varying degrees been involved with violence, or that Christianity has been violent, because there are times when violence can be necessary. It's not something that we should celebrate or think is great, but there are moments when violence can become something that is necessary to save our country, necessary to save the people in which we know, the people which we love. And so violence is not something that we should be afraid of. There ultimately needs to be a balance between peace and war, as with anything else. Therefore, we cannot say that, can't say it's evil all the time, but there's an extent to which people pass a judgment upon a Christian if a Christian's violent. And it's really the idea that the Christian wasn't Christian enough. And the people who do that see the hypocrisy there, but in seeing the hypocrisy, they engage in the exact same fallacy that the Christian does, because ultimately they never ask the question whether or not these things are wrong. But ultimately, it's ironic to me, it's strange to me that, if you really think about it, if you really understand, for instance, if you look at my country, the United States, let's say it like that, the United States, we are probably at this point in our history one of the most dysfunctional societies that has ever existed so far. We're culturally dysfunctional. We have what I would call a toxic individualism. We have this individualism that's become rampant. Most of the really bad ideas that have plagued the Western world are things that have emerged from Christianity, well, not Christianity, but rather I should say the United States, my country. Thus, my country is at the very root, to varying degrees, of the decay of the West itself. And so you can almost blame my country and my country's culture, and people have even said that we don't have a culture. But what makes us unique out of all the country in the world is the fact that we have a Christian heritage. We have nothing before Christianity. We are purely Christian. The people who settled in this country were thoroughly Christian, and thus our culture, even when it becomes secularized, is thoroughly Christian, and yet we're extremely dysfunctional. We're an extremely unbalanced society. We can't figure out what the hell we're trying to do. We have problems in our government. Our government's in decay. Our institutions are in decay, and we're in decline. But we seem, at least to me anyway, seem to be in some way very confused people. And we've created a toxic, trash culture which we've sold to the rest of the world. But the point I'm trying to make is that we have all these problems. What is the degeneracy that someone like Davis M.J. Rini always talks about in his videos? The degeneracy. I would say that Christianity leads to this degeneracy. This is my view, and I would say that, in my view, it's because of Christianity suppresses nature. Instead of sex in a responsible manner, sex in a healthy manner, sex becomes evil. It's the idea of evil. It's a very unbalanced view of life and nature. There's always a need There's always need for discretion. It's not always good to go into violence. It's not always good to have sex with whoever you want. There needs to be a sense of balance. Balance is very important. But if you proclaim something to be evil, and it's so evil that if you even to think it would send you to hell, and in other words, to even think this, which comes naturally to us, is to kill yourself, is to destroy yourself. That creates a very, very unbalanced but pathological manner of living. It creates a very pathological mentality in a person. And thus, what you end up having is a world which is very dysfunctional. But when people leave that, when people get out of that mindset, then they go the other way. And instead of trying to have a balanced view of things like sex, they view sex as a sort of almost like, so you end up getting like a perversion and degeneracy and this sort of thing. You end up getting something where people don't know, ultimately because people are staring into the light so much it blinds them, and they don't know after a while what's good and what's bad. It's this difference between a weak-minded emphasis on the idea of going to hell, of burning in hell. Thus, you do anything bad, you're going to hell. But also the tendency to look into the light all the time and try to concentrate only on the good. You have the Calvinist view, which is that view of hell and damnation, and the other view, which is liberal and accepting and tolerant. And both views, within the context of Christianity, create a situation in which you end up accepting everything and you have no standards, or you end up thinking everything is evil and you live in a cottage somewhere. You don't engage with the world. But none of these ideas are things in which you could use, or rather I should say, none of these ideas are things which, when they are at the foundation of a culture and a society, that they create anything that will help the society to preserve itself, that will create a healthy, balanced, functioning society. Thus, the reasons, and there's many reasons, these are just my brief reasons. There's many reasons why, or many different perspectives one can have on Christianity and how Christianity has led to the decline of the West, even though it's at the foundation of Western culture. I could go on forever, really. I can go on forever about the problems of Christianity and how that relates to other problems in Western culture, but I wanted to make this video relatively brief, and I have a bit of a speech impediment, so you have to forgive me if I let that kind of screw my words up a bit. And I wonder, I don't know if I was talking too fast in this video. I really just wanted to make it as brief as I possibly could, just to follow up on what I had said last time in my previous video. But my critique here, I have to add, it doesn't connect necessarily to left-wing politics. That's a whole other thing. And because I've taken so long to actually do this video, I didn't want to look at it from that perspective, or rather the perspective that I had wanted to do in the original video that I had posted the last video. But anyway, I'm kind of ranting on now. I'm kind of getting off a little bit off track. It's kind of late. So anyway, that's pretty much it. And like I said before, I apologize to all my new subscribers for not uploading anything in a while, and in general for not uploading anything really anything new recently. I just got caught up in my personal life, and this video was a bit ranty, as with all my videos. I hope you enjoyed it. Kind of screwed my words up a bit, but that's okay. I think I'll use this anyway, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.